Central Star Wars. I'm in. It's oh my god! That's like when you want to do Bold and Beautiful After Dark. Go ahead, Frank. It's all yours.
Hey, everybody, welcome once again. We have journeyed to a galaxy far, far away for a very special evening here on the Andor Aftershow right here on JLJ Media. We're going to be doing a sensual.
Oh my god, hilarious! That's funny.
We'll be doing a look at Rogue One in comparison to now that we've seen all of season 2 seasons of Andor, how that film now fits in and kind of compares and contrasts and sits nicely in butting up against Andor at the end of the second season episode. So as always, we reassembled this trio of Star Wars Titans yet again. As always, our roguishly handsome John Dumphy, ready to break this all down.
Oh, I'm so ready to
Uh,
sensually break this down with you.
to essentially break this down. Along with our Sith Daddy, who's looking very sensual this evening.
Yes.
If you're not watching, it's like a harmonica on my chest.
Oh man,
Exactly.
So
appeasing the
hot.
fans, giving them what they want.
So
So
I got
hot.
fans on me. That's the whole point going on. There's fans on me. It's hot Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like 50 degrees in New York right now, by the way.
Is it really?
It's like cold here. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's crazy. It was
uh,
8 degrees here.
and
So
you can consider me a Death Star, just the resident planet killer. Uh, in the course of this episode. As always, folks, the chat is up and running, so feel free to share any of your thoughts about Andor and Rogue One. The super chat is also enabled, so if you'd like to throw a few credits towards GLJ Media, it is always appreciated. Uh, John Dunphy, before we get into everything in a more specific conversation, overall, what was your experience like watching Rogue One after sitting through 2 seasons of Andor?
Yeah, it was funny. Definitely watched it with somewhat of a new perspective, right? Because it's like you're watching this movie that's supposed to be like immediately after uh the series Andor ends, and it's like we open with Jyn Erso and Galen Erso and that family, and it's like there's a part of me that wonders like what would we think of this movie if it came out in a different order, right? If we got season one of Andor, season two of Andor, and then Rogue One, like what would we have thought of this movie? Like almost the same way that like sort of we got The Mandalorian, where we got the first few seasons, and now we know we're getting The Mandalorian and Grogu. Like I wonder how we'll receive this movie, and we got it sort of the opposite in Rogue One, where it's like we got the movie first. And I feel like there's a part of me that wonders how I'd feel about this if we got season one and two of Andor, and then we were told, the final season that we thought we were getting is actually going to be a movie, and it's going to be this movie called Rogue One. Um, and so, like, while I rewatched Rogue One, I kind of thought of it that way. Like, would I have liked if it had come out in a different order? And it definitely still held up for me. I have some small little uh thing gripes, not many. I still think it was all very well done. And Andor and Rogue One are still some of my favorite Star Wars that ever have ever come out. But I don't know. It's just it's it's very interesting watching this movie for the first time after watching the series of Andor. Um and I'm excited to get into all of this stuff with you guys though.
Oh, nice. James, yeah, to John's point, I mean, this is, yeah, it's been a while since you've seen it. So now watching it again in preparation for this, uh, how do you feel? Do you feel that this Rogue One is a different experience because we're not getting a pure like Tony Gilroy experience. It's definitely a amalgamation of his stuff as well as what the original director Gareth Edwards was trying to accomplish.
So I was finishing what John says, Ranch. I decided looking at that. I didn't look at it that way. That's a good way. That's a good way to look at it. Like, that's one way to look at it. Because it's all Tony Gilroy still. The movie is too. I thought one thing I thought was it's very when it was over. I was like, that's very cool. He had a chance to go back years later and create a prequel series. That's kind of cool. We're gonna do that. But when we think, and we'll get into, of course, into detail, why didn't we have the Urso family on our show? Because the movie opens with them. So it's kind of like, why didn't we get more of them in the actual show? Like, why that really weren't added in? Now looking at like we open with them, we don't open with Cassian or anything that's going on there. We open with them. We open with them. Then we meet up with Cassian. It's like wow, that was really interesting. Because I hadn't seen it in a while. Again, still my favorite standalone movie. My overall view of the movie is very much it's a great connector from the series to the movie to seeing Princess Leia CGI, Princess Leia getting the how to get to the Death Star. So we know it says the word hope, and we know we're going into a new hope. That's the first set of in quotes series. So it's a good connector. The movie is like a decent connector, and we had enough of Saw in the series. That's a good connector too. And also our favorite droid. I forgot that R2D2 makes an appearance. I totally forgot about that. I made me laugh. But as we get into it, I felt like, wow, this was really a suicide mission. Okay, now I get it. Now I get Andor. Like this was really a suicide mission. Like they weren't in rebellion that long. Actually, when you think about it, compared to some people. I'm like, okay. It just that. I mean, that's it. That was my overall thoughts. But I enjoyed the movie, and I watched it on because I've been showing everybody that I have the actual DVD, but I did watch on Disney Plus. And I did. I was gonna do my whole thing. I was like, oh, screw that. But it also, what was interesting was that because we had the 3 episodes in a row every week, it almost felt like that. It kind of was like watching this movie. I was like, oh, it didn't feel like a movie. It felt like I was watching the rest of the series. It was really weird, and that part got me. So I was like, oh, I'm watching the series. So that's how I felt. How did you feel, Graham? Oh yeah,
yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, I feel like Tony Gilroy, he was setting things up so it kind of flowed into Rogue One, but yeah, it's not perfect, and I think it's always, you know, I mean, I feel like those can be massaged depending on how nerdy you really want to dive into the minutia of, addressing certain lines of dialogue in Rogue One, uh, certain beats that feel like, oh, well, that was already kind of established in Andor, so why are we kind of repeating it for the first time here in Rogue One? Things that, if you were going to go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, maybe you would approach differently. I don't know. It's yeah, it's still it's a different experience for sure. Because I mean, I feel like you're definitely it's weird because it's compatible and yet it's different at the same time. It's definitely uh, you're introducing all these characters here in Rogue One that we really have no connection to. Where now having watched 2 seasons of Andor, there are other characters that you have seen, and so wondering had as John said these 2 seasons happened first and then Rogue One was happening, would we have seen a different cast of characters be with Cassian on that trip to Scarif that he
I
kind of
think
crossed along the way?
I think so actually.
You know, so yeah,
I,
because I feel like you're kind of hamstrung too by production, budget, stuff like that, where there maybe were more characters from the original Rogue One that you would want seated in, but much like Galen, would you have wanted him in there? But that wasn't even really the focus of the show. That was more of a reveal at the end of season 1 that they're working on the Death Star. We never really
right,
saw like any.
right.
I mean, that just wasn't part of what this 2 seasons of Andor was about, showing you that particular side of the Empire. So, I mean, maybe not seeing him kind of makes sense. But like seeing, some of the other characters that they kind of pick up along the way, like would it have been more interesting to see some of them seated in earlier? I don't know. Um, John,
There's
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's a couple of things though, right off the bat, that like after watching the full series of Andor and then rewatching Rogue One, like there's a couple of things that changed for me like big time that I just wanted to mention. Like one was the fact that General Draven told Cassian, "We're gonna kill Galen Erso. Forget what you heard in there." And it's kind of like um after seeing that scene, I'm like, all right, it makes more sense now that Cassian couldn't pull the trigger because we just had a full series where like Andor repeatedly ignored Draven's um orders. You know what I mean? So it's like that almost makes more sense to me. Um and like the fact that Cassian was kind of his own person even as this rebellion was growing. Um and Also there was like this. Oh,
Oh,
we gonna say
to
something,
go to
Chris?
that point, John, because I felt like too that with Draven as well, because I felt like the way he was being written in season 2 of Andor, where it was, like that line about we're eliminating Galen Erso, very much felt like that's a Luthen move. And so having and seeing how everybody in the Republic was in the rebellion was kind of casting aspersions towards Luthen by the point we are seeing him in season 2, Draven being one of them, it felt weird to me to see him pull a very Luthen type move when we had seen
Hmm.
him kind of like being against all that in the last few episodes of Andor season 2.
Oh yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Um, and who was it? Oh, I guess it was Bale actually that Andor had that conversation with at the end of season 2 of Andor, where he was like laughing and kind of being like, "Oh, you would have gotten along with Luthen much more than you realize." Um, and I feel like that's probably the same for Draven, right? I feel like none of these like established people that were part of the alliance that only could have been created because of Luthen, right? That had all these like misgivings about him, like they were so much more like him than they ever knew, and it's probably because they never really got to meet him, like the man Luthen. Um,
Yeah, it is weird just how quickly to what you were saying, John, how quickly this all comes together compared to like, I mean, the episode 12 of Andor season 2 through Rogue One, we're just talking a matter of days. And that's it. There we go.
yeah,
So like Krennic. So like, oh, I got to go to Scarif. Well, see you later. You're going to be getting shot in the face pretty soon by the Death Star.
yeah.
Or since I enjoy.
Yeah. I have to say too that I love the fact that like throughout the series of Andor, we didn't see anybody like Tarkin or Vader or the Emperor. Their presence was always felt, but we didn't see any of these people. So like the fact that they were saved for Rogue One, the movie, almost makes it more impactful if you consider them all as sort of a package, right? Both seasons of Andor and the movie. Like the fact they only come in at the very end just makes it more effective to me. That like we know they're part of the story, but they're not around until the very end here. You know, like the last season, if you want to consider Rogue One like sort of the last season of Andor. Um, yeah, I love the way that they were used. And Tony Gilroy, all credit to him. Like it was all done so well.
Well, I'll ask both of you, having, setting aside and the 2 seasons of Andor, when you first watched Rogue One, did you go and then you heard about like, hey, we're going to be doing an Andor season. Did you imagine like any of this coming out of it? Were there characters or experiences or moments from the Rogue One film that you're like, yeah, I would want to know more about these characters? Because I will say, for me, when they announced it, I was like, okay, I love what we got, but on the initial announcement, I was like, really? Oh, I mean, the movie is fine, but I don't know if I need to know more.
I would have thought honestly, if a spin-off series was going to come from the Rogue One movie, I would have assumed that it would be based around like Saw Gerrera or
Mm.
something like that, not Andor. And you know what we got in Andor was so good that I will never complain about it. There are still parts of Saw's story that I kind of want to see. So like if we found out tomorrow that a new Saw Gerrera, series was starting, I would not be upset about it. But but it's still like the same, kind of like when Rogue One starts, we get introduced to Galen Erso and Jen Erso, and there's this pilot that defects, and he's going to meet Saw, and it's like I would just assume that the spinoff would be based along those lines, not some unknown character like Cassian Andor, but it would be based on Galen Erso, this pilot that defected that goes to Saw because Saw has a connection to Galen Erso. Like that's what I would have assumed the spinoff series would be about, not about this random Cassian Andor. Yeah.
How about you,
Well,
James?
I remember back in the day, I wasn't that excited, so I was like, "We'll cover it," because we were covering other stuff. I wasn't excited about it, and so then I think I said something to the lines of like, "We have to go back to our conversations," but I think it was something like, "I'll do it because we do it on the other shows. It's YouTube, so I'll do it." But I say, if this shit isn't good, you're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And I did say that, and then I saw the first couple. I loved it. I mean, I was like so I wasn't even thinking about the movie or anything. I was just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll do it because back to then we had a bunch of series we were doing back to back. I mean, for a while they were coming out just one after the other. We were doing them, and I was more just concerned it wouldn't be good, just because we've done like 2 or 3 series where they were like, they were okay. Like, so I was just going, please don't have a bad series. Please don't have a bad. Like, I just want something good. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. We'll do it. So for me, I had no thoughts whatsoever. I didn't think about it very hard. Nothing. I was just like, we're gonna do Andor, folks. We're gonna do it. And then every week I was like, I fucking love this show. Excuse my language, everybody. It was nighttime, but I fucking love this show. I mean, it exceeded every expectation I didn't have. I mean, it exceeded everything. I didn't think anything about it. So this show, and you see, I was excited for the Acolytes, and I loved it. So I mean, Skeleton Crew, I was like half and half, kind of excited about it, but I liked it better than I thought I was gonna like. So like each series to me is a different type of anticipation for me. The only one was attached to a movie. I wasn't even thinking that. I wasn't even thinking anything about that. Now, season 2, now I'm connecting the dots. So I'm kind of doing it backwards, Frank. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Well, and I mean, you can tell everybody now what you told us before we started recording, is that the shirt you're wearing now, it used to be intact, and this is the shirt that he wore the first time he watched Andor, and he just that those are is ripping at his own shirt.
Yeah.
James
Those
just
are your
clawed
those are
clawed those
your
marks.
claw marks.
Yes.
I clawed myself. I got excited. It was. I mean, the Andor series exceeded all my expectations. So it's my favorite series at this point. It's my favorite series from beginning to end. So now I'm seeing flaws in the movie because now the series, because that's still my favorite standalone Star Wars, and kind of basically still one of my top 5 Star Wars related films, I would say. So it's up there still, but now I'm catching it on, well, because I really got they did a great job in the series to get me caring about certain characters. And I really do think if this hadn't come out first, we would see Val. We would see there are people we would see in this series. I mean, in this movie, I think that that just weren't invented back then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody can agree that, we're doing this tonight not to praise Rogue One, but to bury it.
No, like, listen to Frank. No.
There is a big part of me though, like, and like it's fine that they're not in the movie. Like it doesn't like take away from Andor, but like there's a part of me now that like feels like watching Rogue One after the fact that like, man, I kind of do want to see what Val's up to.
No, come on,
I want to,
come on,
yeah,
John.
like
Really,
I want to. Like I want to see what Clea's doing. Is she
Right.
okay? Like
Right.
and like the fact we don't get that in the movie,
No.
like it bothers me a little bit because like I care about those characters because
Yes.
Andor did such a good job. At the same time, I can't say that it like makes Andor a worse movie or anything like that. Like
Well, I'll say it's a worse
Rogue
movie.
One. I mean, Rogue One. I mean, a worse movie.
I think it's a worse
Uh,
movie, but I think that it's almost now the natural progression should have been. I haven't seen the interviews yet on how his process as to write, like what character. I mean, obviously there are characters you're introduced to the series that won't be in the movie because they won't make it that far. We get that, but you left some people alive and out there, so it's like they're in the universe. So it's kind of like, but you made us care for 2 seasons about them, and it goes up against your movie. So it's kind of a weird, like, then why did you? Why? I'm just thinking, how did you choose to keep those people alive that were in the? I don't. I'm curious about all that because I say it's a worse movie, but I think it's just it does take the movie a little bit.
I guess though I'm just like I'm just okay with those people still just existing without us knowing what really what their end story is. You know, like Clea, I think maybe she just retired. You know, she's had a rough life and she retired, and maybe she found somebody on Yavin, and now she just wants to spend the rest of her life in peace. You know, maybe Vel too. She lost Cinta. She's just gonna train pilots on Yavin, and that's her whole thing from here on out. And we don't really need to see more of their story. You know, like there's a part of me that misses them, that wants to see what they were doing in Rogue One, but at the same time, like it doesn't really take away from my enjoyment from either the Andor series or the Rogue One movie that we don't get like sort of a wrap up of what happened with them, I
I
guess.
heard that there's a side movie called Val and Clea coming out. I mean, like Hobbs and Shaw from the Fast and Furious. The whole side.
Hey, listen, I'd be here for it. I'd be here for it.
Like you're here to you're going to do that. Like, just because those two characters, you're going to do those two characters, we can see what happens.
There you go. And Idris Elba is coming to play the bad guy.
Right there you go. There you go. I'm in. I'm totally in. I'm totally in. That works. That works for me, Frank. Make it happen, Frank.
Well, I mean, I guess because that kind of brings me to the thing that I still on this rewatch still felt the same way is like introducing Jin, introducing Chirrut, Baze, Bodhi. Uh, you know, we don't spend enough time with them for me to really care
Nope.
about them as much. And so, you know, again, when Tony Gilroy's coming up with the Andor series, you know, how, you know, how invested he was in those characters, how much how easy it would be have been to have those actors, in the series, budgets and schedules. I don't know. So I don't
Right.
even know if but I also think the way that they were set up, the only one that really kind of would have worked would have been Jin to see more of the backstory with Galen and stuff like that earlier in Andor. But like, Chirrut and Baze and Bodhi, the way they're introduced, they're coming from outside anything that we've seen so far covered in Andor. So, it makes it tough, I think, maybe when Tony Gilroy is trying to figure out what he wants to do with his 2 seasons of Andor, to take the
Yeah.
three random characters, four random characters that, are kind of just offshoots in Rogue One, and then try to find a way to kind of like seed them into his series.
I feel like oh sorry.
Right. Right.
No, I was just gonna say I feel like the transition between season two of Andor and the movie, I actually do feel like they were pretty seamless, honestly. The only thing that I might have liked from season two of Andor at the end was being like, oh, this random Galen Erso name is being thrown out. We also know that Jyn Erso is currently a Imperial prisoner or something. You know what I mean? Like that might have like helped with me a little bit. Because I feel like when we find out that uh, Cassian is leaving Yavin to go to the Ring of Kafrene to find this spy Tivik to get more information, like, and then like Rogue One, after we get the Urso family introduction, picks up on Cassian going to the Ring of Kafrene to get this information. And I'm like, if we just got like just one mention of Jyn Urso in the Andor series, it would have almost sort of like, I don't know, it just would have tied together better for me.
I
Um,
Yeah, I agree because when we do get to the point where they're kind of rescuing Jin off that transport, it kind of comes out of it's like, what? How did they know exactly they tracked her down easy? Was that how did they make that leap to be like, oh yeah, we know
right,
where she is and we're gonna get her?
right. It's like, all right, we know about Galen Erso. He's this Imperial scientist, but like I feel like the empire, the rebellion, I mean, should have been able to be like pull up like, oh, but he also has a daughter, Jin or so, who worked with Saw Gerrera, who is a rebel that we don't have a great relationship with. I feel like if you just threw her name in there at the end of the Andor series, like that would have like tied everything together much better. But I also feel like the way it was done like still works for me. So
Well, but it's also weird too because it was like the big crux of when at the beginning of Rogue One when we see everything that's happening with the Orso family. It's all about Galen trying to get his wife and Jin away. We don't want you around when Krennic and his soldiers show up. Uh, and so, Jin hiding from them after everything that happens on that planet. It feels like, well, now she ends up in an Empire prison. So, like, how did they not know who they had but the Republic knows who it is? Because you got to figure if the Empire knew that they had Jyn Orso's daughter, that Galen Orso's daughter, that I mean, Krennic would do something with that information. He was so gung-ho
mm,
having her so many years before.
yeah, how did she hide her identity so well from the Empire?
Yeah.
But the rebellion somehow the completely under-resourced rebellion
Yes.
somehow did know her identity. That is true, which makes me wonder if it's just some sort of like spy that had this information that shared it. But it's like I'd love to see that
Yeah.
as a viewer. So, but you're right. You're right.
Uh, well, to backtrack and just give a little backstory here is like Rogue One starts with kind of like the brainchild of John Knoll, who's one of the visual effects supervisors. Just a long-term ILM master. He's brought so much to the Star Wars on the visual side, but he pitches for the series that never went anywhere, the Star Wars Underworld series. And he pitches this idea. It's like, hey, this would be great to figure out how people got the plans for the Death Star. Then Lucasfilm gets sold to Disney. He repitches it again one more time because he's not sure. It's like, hey, I don't know if this would still be a possibility. But if I don't pitch it, I'll always regret not at least having tried to see what would happen with this idea. And the new powers that be between Lucasfilm and Disney, they're like, yeah, let's do this. And so they greenlight it. And so thanks to John Knoll, we get this really cool idea. And I think if you're looking at like Star Wars history based on just the stuff that we knew from the original trilogy, especially watching those as fans, but the things that got you like kind of intrigued were the Clone Wars, hearing all about that stuff, and then uh just this offhanded mention that they make once they get the plans from R2 at the rebellion base is that so many people died getting these plans to there. So something that I never really like had I mean, like I knew of but never really dwelled on. But yes, that's a very cool moment in Star Wars history and an interesting story I think to be uncovered. Uh John, how do you feel about the idea of like, hey, yeah, that's when you're thinking of Star Wars history, just based on those original three films, a non-Jedi, not, old Republic kind of stuff, just that little moment of rebellion history would be interesting enough to want to make a whole movie about.
Yeah, no, I think it would be amazing. I feel like um, th I feel like oh, God bless you. This this whole like creation with Tony Gilroy between Rogue One and now the series of Andor has like and I know some people are tired, right? Because we've been talking about this same sort of storyline for 50 years, right? Of this the Skywalker saga and this same sort of like rebellion versus the Empire that came out of this republic. Like it's still like such a it seems overdone, but there's still so much of the story to be told. And I feel like it's we've gotten lucky that like we've gotten so many great storytellers to kind of be part of this whole thing. Um
See, it depends on who you talk to, who you thinks is overdone. Because a lot of us who are older, we've been wanting this. This is what we've been waiting for. We want the Skywalker saga. We want these stories. A lot of us want them, and people I've talked to around my age and older, we want them. And we've
yeah,
been waiting so
yeah.
long to get them. We felt cheated the first time. We didn't want to go backwards. We didn't care about the fucking going backwards. And we went backwards. And this last trilogy, I think almost everybody I've talked to, it's critically panned. It's just panned. They're just like, what the fuck was that? So I think now they are really wanting the old Skywalker saga, just some newer stories in it. And there's so much to mine. Because remember, I'm trying to remind myself, when the movie came out in 1977, it was just an experimental thing that the homeboy put out. I mean, that's all. I mean, it was one movie. They put it out, and it was a huge. It could have been a flop. It could have been a total flop, and then just it would have went away. But it became this huge hit. And I remember it. I was there. I mean, I remember how big. I remember in line to go see this movie. It was huge. I saw it like 7 times. When I was a kid, it was like nothing we saw before. And then he came back with a movie 3 years later, and then then it started kind of to grow. But then remember, for so long we had nothing. After the third wave, it was after six, now six, there was nothing for a long time. And I don't know if that was good or bad, because it just kept going with stuff. But I just know that in the beginning this wasn't meant to be on television. There's no thoughts. It's like Star Trek it was from television first, then went into movies, and so when it went back to television, it made sense. Star Wars never started out that way. And so now we have these series that are in the universes, and everybody's like, now they're creating their own Marvel, DC kind of type universe. This is all newer. This is all new. Before it was just books, some games. I mean, I have a lot of books. I mean, there's so many collections of people we're not even talking about. Thrawn. All these series are just like people want. And I read all the books. They're sitting there, and it's just
heir to the empire.
Exactly. So I was like, it's just kind of like my generation. I know for a fact, not everybody. I'm speaking for everybody. For many of us, we want that stuff. We feel like it's there. That's why people were open to Boba Fett. They're like, Boba Fett. How did he survive? Like, that was a whole thing. It was very exciting. You're like, okay, let's see what happens to him. So I don't know, but I think the original Skywalker saga, if you want to call it that, just for whatever. I think it depends on who you talk to if they think it's overblown or not. I don't know.
Well, because I feel like for the most part, anytime any sort of franchise keeps revisiting their past, whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, I don't know. For me, there always seems to be a amount of diminishing returns. It's like I really want to see. I want people to keep going forward as opposed to kind of like, hey, let's keep going backwards and trying to explain stuff and set stuff up. I don't need to know how, Han Solo got his last name. I never once was that ever a question in my mind. So I did not need a Solo film to be like, oh, and here's how Han Solo got the last name Solo. Terrible moment. But what I think I like about this movie is that it is a tragedy, which we don't really get much of in the Star Wars. I mean, terrible things happen, but that it all ends with the main cast, the characters that you've been following, all dead. And yet it does give you that little bit of hope at the end. The Princess Leia, they get the plans out and stuff, so you get to have your cake and eat it too. But I just think that having a story that ends in a tragedy is just like just a nice change of pace in Star Wars storytelling.
I agree. No, that was the whole thing about my brother when I went to the theater and sat and watched Rogue One. And all of a sudden they show, when Darth first appears, like, okay, there he is. They've shown him. We heard him talk. Don't choke on your aspirations, and all that, whatever, and all that. But then it was at the end when he's like, okay, fire, and he shows up and he just starts killing everybody. They're trying to get that thing out. It was like, it was so exciting. We're like, my brother goes, see, this is the Darth that we're forgetting about. That's what he said when we were watching. He goes, not the cute and cuddly Darth that's like, who's your daddy and all that stuff. This is the Darth that we know is evil. That's the whole point. And we both were just like we were just so pleasantly shocked at the end of that movie. And we're like, they all died. Then having Leia pop up at the end, you're like, well, like I said, she had Leia. I appreciated that. But so now it goes on to the next thing. But that was not knowing that going into the movie was a wonderful. I'm glad we went and saw it like the second weekend, first weekend or whatever, like second, third day. Because I didn't want to hear any spoilers. I didn't want to hear nothing. I'm glad I went because that was a great surprise. And I still stand by that whole thing, answering John saying earlier, even with the series. I'm glad we didn't see Darth. I'm glad we didn't see certain people in this series. That's fine. For the movie, yes. It was good.
Well, it and they originally you were especially wondering about like a sad ending or tragic ending in a Star Wars story. Is that Gareth Edwards assuming that Disney would not be on board in seeing everybody having a die and having a tragic ending in this. In the original script he wrote, he had everybody surviving, but the producers were like, "No, we're not even going to worry about shooting that. We're definitely going to stick with what we've established." Because I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine. I can only imagine the fan base revolting if it's like, oh, guess what? They all lived. Uh, you know, for fans that are very particular about their canon,
Yeah,
to know that like, hey, back in 1977, you established that these people all died to get these plans. You can't just now show us like, oh no, they all lived.
right, right.
That so for as much as like Gareth Edwards is is a talent, I feel like that was right at the beginning. Just like I'm surprised that it went that far. That he was like he wrote the script with them all surviving.
That's interesting.
Mm.
But also how funny. That's what I say. But you know, Hollywood endings. They want happy endings. They don't like
Yeah,
sad.
I do think that Star Wars, though, like they've had a lot of tragic endings when you think about it. I mean, Order 66. How many times have we seen all these Jedi being murdered, right? Uh, so that whole thing at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Empire Strikes Back, right? Luke falling down this huge hole, having to be rescued. I feel like the tragedy aspect of it, like having a sad, scary ending, is not like foreign to Star Wars.
No, and I think it's much stronger. I mean, that was for as much as opinions may vary about the quality of the prequels. The overall idea is that you knew you were watching, you knew how they were going to end. You knew you had to see all the Jedi get killed, and you knew you had to see, the Empire rise into power. So it was interesting to know, even as you're watching Phantom Menace, you just know it's like, oh, it's only going to get worse from here
Right, right.
over the course of this
But
next
so I
movie.
feel like the ending of like a movie like Rogue One is not like all that surprising or shocking because I feel like we've seen that kind of thing before. I mean, like, how many times before Rogue One even came out did we know that like there were thousands of Jedi in the galaxy before, and they were all murdered through Order 66?
See,
So it's like,
I disagree though with you, John Duffy, and I hate disagreeing with you. I don't like disagreeing with you. I'm with Frank. It still was a shock that at the end they all die. I guess like it's not. I mean, it's just like that's the end of the film. It's different than a scene in a film. It's the end of the film where like I mean, none of them survived because Leia wasn't with them. She was somewhere. She was somewhere else. Like, so when they pass it on to her, that's different. We know she survives because she has to go on to the movies. I just felt like at the time it was a shock. For
it
many,
was,
for us,
but
it was a shock. It was a shock.
in a way it was, but I also feel like it's a very contained story. So it's like, all right, like we have hope, right? We learn in this story, right? We get to see Andor say for the first time after he was told by the bellhop from Gorman,
Yeah.
rebellions are built on hope. He gets to say that to Jin in this movie. Rebellions are built on
And
hope, which
she
Jin
says it
later
later also.
later
Yeah.
repeats. And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, like this is a very contained story that we kind of know how everything ends. So it's like, um, I can't really be disappointed by this ending where everybody dies because it's just this is kind of what I expected. These people are going on a suicide mission. Um, and more context has been filled in since the movie came out and all that, but it's just, I don't know. It's kind of it's funny. Like this movie is a tragedy, and the series around it and the movies around it are tragedies. And I feel like I'm not shocked or surprised by any of it, honestly.
See, I
Oh,
think it's. Go ahead.
go ahead, James.
Go ahead.
Oh no, get into this.
Hey, listen to me judging off our tops. I'm already halfway there. No, I know. I'm like, just John, drink some more out of the cup. We'll take our tops off. No, I no, my no, I'm saying I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed in the ending. I'm actually saying I like the ending because it's. But I agree with Frank on something I just said. Just in the Star Wars universe, for and for any Hollywood movie that's a big blockbuster, we saw it happen later, obviously with Marvel, that came out later, a few years later. But they always ended with something that was not basically the whole cast gets killed. But like it's not in this kind of series context. I think so. Like so, when it first happened, and you're right, it's a self-contained movie, but it was kind of like it's still the Star Wars universe. Kind of like, oh, that's it. We had no TV series, and nothing was nothing. I feel like now we watch it, we're changing because now we have TV series and all kinds of things go on now. Our minds have been expanded. I think because of the new world of Star Wars. And I'm thankful for that too. But now we have other things out there that it's like okay, but just for still all that stuff, it's a pretty dark Star Wars story. When you think about it, it literally is a suicide mission, and but it's necessary for the next thing to happen, obviously. But it's pretty much
Right.
a very dark
Right.
story. Very
And
dark
that's why it is so weird, right? Because it is sort of a contained story, but it's still not contained because it's part of like Andor seasons 1 and 2 into Rogue One into the original trilogy. They're all kind of one story.
right.
So like there are certain parts of the story that feel like they're contained, but it's like no, like Andor season 1, 2, Rogue One, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. They're all kind of one story. So like there are tragic moments in it, but really the ending still is a happy ending, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole point. It's like Frank said. I mean, that's the thing. It still ends on some note that's not
Yeah. It's
complete.
like it's almost like it almost feels like the original trilogy has become like 8 movies, not
Right.
3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with that. I just think that it's still one that even when we saw even in the acolyte, what it was acolyte, where we saw when they killed half the cast in the beginning middle of the series. They had a big fight. And they killed some of the people we like. I'm like they killed them.
Yeah.
That was shocking, and it was good for a series, I guess. But it's kind of like, wow, we just learned about them, and like that was kind of dark too. They're like they're I mean, this isn't the Ewok series where it's all cutesy and whatever. I mean, these are like the other end of the spectrum. This is like very much they are a little darker than some of the others. I think. I don't know, I just
Is
like
that is that a problem too? The fact that like Star Wars, I feel like from its inception has always sort of been geared more towards kids, and it
right.
feels like now it's getting darker,
Yes.
like more adult themed. Like,
Yes.
is that an issue
I don't know it's an
for
issue.
Star Wars?
I know it's an issue, but I know it's happening. That's the whole point. It was meant for kids and grown up kids.
Right.
It's a
But
space.
that's what I mean too. It's like as you create more Star Wars and the audience is supposed to be more mature now, I guess. Like, is that an issue? Because like Star Wars was supposed to be made for kids, right? And now it feels like we're getting into a very dark, sort of mature part of Star Wars. And it's like, is it meant for kids anymore? Because
I mean, I feel like the best properties are have the most elasticity to them, where you can do more kid oriented. You can do kid and grown up kid oriented, and then you could do more just grown up oriented stories. And so I feel like, especially now with these 2 seasons of Andor, I think it's really shown just how far you could take it into a more kind of adult sense of storytelling for with Star Wars and still be within the universe and franchise that we all know and love. So I don't think every show needs to be like Andor. I mean, there should still be room for skeleton crews, uh, you know, Obi-Wan's acolytes, hopefully with better storytelling in those last two. But I think there should still be room for that too, and any of the animated series as well to appeal to all those different kind of fans. And what's great is that you know as a kid you could start maybe you fall in love first with the animated stuff and then or the original trilogy and then you start exploring from there. Or as an adult maybe your first exposure is Andor because you hear all your friends talking about it and maybe you get sucked into it that way.
Okay, wait, stop for a second. We have people in chat. I want to read some of their comments. Of course, I want to say hi to the chat. Hi, chat. Um, Connor says, I want a show of Saw forming the partisans. In light of the ambiguity about whether Pluty was a spy or not, I'm fascinated about how he cultivates such fanatic loyalty, even if it's in the animation like Tales of the Rebellion or something. Another comment is, I think it was very bold narrative to keep that. Take two. I think it was a very bold narrative choice to keep Val, Wilman, and Clea alive. It would have been so easy for Gilroy to kill them off, but the restraint was a huge surprise. And it feels more organic rather than forced because of Rogue One. Another comment is, I believe the Jin stuff is covered in another novel. So there you go. It's quite extensive, so I think Tony was able to step all over that. Because remember, frankly, you guys may know better than I do, not everything is canon, right, in the books. That was the whole point. Because they want to be able to be free to do what they want, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I know there also been comic books that have somebody did a comic book of the origin of K2SO, and Tony Gilroy was like, "No, I'm not going to be beholden to that. I want to do what I want. What I want."
They brought that up in the chat too. They said
Yeah.
they overriding K2SO's origin story. But what is it, Frank? I can't remember. Was it like they're not all canon? Some are and some aren't? Or
I mean, I feel if the ones for sure are anything you see on screen, any animated series, any TV show, any film, absolutely canon. And I feel like any of the comics and any of the books are canon until they aren't. In terms of,
got
like Tony Gilroy wanting to do like, no, this is the real origin of K2SO.
it. Got it.
Yeah. So in an absence of that, like all the Jyn Erso stuff could be considered canon. But if somebody came in with this great pitch and they wanted to do, an Orso family miniseries, then that may invalidate some or all of the novel stuff.
Wow. Books are good, folks. Read the books. They're all good. He's a comic. I'm a book fan. I like reading the books.
Yeah. I mean, because I feel like, Star Wars is all about keeping that merchandising and these characters alive. And so, in the absence of like TV shows or films or animated series, you make new content and then, but it's all up to the discretion of the live action or the anime, whatever's seen on screen is the final arbiter of like, does the stuff staying, in true canon.
Okay. But still, folks, read the books. Books are good. They're fun. They're fun books. I wouldn't say don't read them. I'm reading the new High Republic books. They're good. I'm just saying, but the older books, still read them. They're good, folks. I still endorse them. They're good read. They're fun reads. They're good reads. So I just say I wouldn't not read them.
And it is interesting with the Thrawn stuff. We're like in a whole new world with this too, because it seems like the show has no interest, or the live action stuff has no interest in doing the Timothy Zahn trilogy.
Right. And I love it. My brother and I we both read it several times over. We're like, they're not going there at all, are they?
I feel like the only way you really could do that is in an animated form. If they were to do like the Thrawn trilogy as an animated event, would be awesome. Because that's the only way I think you're really gonna, unless you're gonna recast all the original series characters. I mean, that's really the only way you could tell that story. Or I maybe they just like Dave Filoni wants to be free to kind of just take Thrawn and tell whatever story that he and Jon Favreau are kind of cooking up right now with the like Ahsoka season 2 and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's a shame because that's such a great storyline.
I know. I mean, we got people at this house. We love it. So I mean, we're all. We keep waiting for somebody to say it.
If only that had been the original blueprint for the sequel trilogy.
Right. Hello. Oh my God.
I'll never know why that was not. Maybe it was considered, but then dismissed. But I think it's
a very poor decision.
Yeah,
I agree. I will agree with you on that one, John Delphi. Correct, completely.
Because you see, like especially like Filoni, clearly those Timothy Zahn's books spoke to him. Because I mean, he wouldn't have put Thrawn in Rebels and then done Ahsoka with him as well, if that character hadn't really grabbed him. And so it's like now you want to see like he was created in such a cool way that influenced Dave Filoni. And now it's like, come on, Dave Filoni, give us a chance to now kind of see the pure Thrawn story that we all have been wanting to see brought to screen after so many years. But who knows?
No, we're not getting it.
Boo!
Never going to get it. Never going to get it.
Boo this man. Boo. Boo this man.
Boo this man.
Well, of course, with Rogue One way we differentiate it and let us know that, hey, this is not necessarily a Skywalker saga film. It's a little bit more on the outside. So there's no opening crawl.
Right.
Yes, same thing with Solo. I mean, there's no opening crawl to these ones because they're not part of the official.
But they have that one thing that says a galaxy. They have to just have like a
Yeah.
couple few words. That's
Yeah, just a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Boom.
Now we're booing. Okay. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, we just jump right into it, and we get to see some of the Galen Urso backstory there. Some cool black stormtroopers, Orson Krennic. That was one that one thing just watching Andor season 2 and then rolling right into Rogue One is just looking at Orson Krennic's hair and just like, seeing that 7 years old ago, Ben Mendelsohn compared to more present day Ben Mendelsohn playing Orson Krennic and like, "Oh, look at that hair. Just look at that hair." But I dug those black stormtroopers that he has as his squad.
Are they Death Troopers? Is that what this particular group is called? Death Troopers and all in the all black?
Or sexy troopers, sensual, maybe. Sensual
Central Troopers. The Central.
Sex Troopers.
Jeez. Yikes.
Even sex troopers.
The one thing is I felt like why, and maybe this is just a case of, better sourcing of materials or times, like taste change. I felt like Krennic's suit, his uniform, his outfit looked a little bit more polished in Andor season 2 than it did in Rogue One. I felt like at times it's like, oh, it looks a little more chintzy in Rogue One compared to how it looked in Andor season 2. I don't know. Did that pop out to either of you two, or is that maybe it's me just being weird?
You're being weird. No, I don't know. I know I didn't catch that, but I just obviously times have changed. I mean, this is obvious. I mean, like obviously they have better stuff on Andor. They spent a lot of money as you read to us one time on the show.
Yeah.
So I expected the movie to age a bit in looks. It did a little bit. Not to me, not a lot, but it did age a little. It's like we had such great cinematography on Andor. There's a style on the season, both seasons, of how they shot stuff and what was included. But it was fine. But for me, I didn't. That was the least of my stuff when I came to watch this movie.
I mean, John, I still felt like Benjamin Bratt in that outfit that he's wearing as Bail Organa in episode 12, just impeccable. And seeing Jimmy Smits back in the role wearing that similar outfit, he just did not rock it as well.
Oh.
I will say that was one of the things that was a little jarring. Was seeing Jimmy Smits back as Bail Organa after last week, watching Bail Organa being played by.
I knew he was coming back. It was kind of weird.
Yeah. No, I agree. I knew it, so like I was prepared for it, but at the same time, it was a little bit like Jimmy Smits looked a little different last week.
I will say overall, and I'll ask both of you now, you've rewatched it, you've watched these 2 seasons of Andor. I still feel even after this rewatch, one of my gripes is that I didn't necessarily need to see a putting a band together kind of film. I rather would have just had this team together at the beginning and watching them go along. I thought it would have helped. It would have made the deaths at the end feel more meaningful if I already felt like these characters had a history before I saw them at the beginning of Rogue One. And just, I could let my mind imagine what those adventures were like all the way through the ending of Rogue One. Because when we see like Baze tell, like, we refer to Jin as like little sister, I'm like, you've known her for about 12 hours. So what this kind of familial attachment doesn't feel right. Yet if you'd been together at the start of Rogue One, I would have bought more into this because I could have been like, oh yeah, they've had these adventures for X amount of time before we saw them on screen. So I can buy this connection. But knowing that seeing them meet for the first time and then rapidly having this connection felt unearned to me.
I think what's so funny you say that because we had these talks about the show saying, well, we want to know more, and not because we're picking up every year. So it's funny you're saying that in this case. Now we've had the show. We don't need that. We don't need that, but we needed that because we had no show. So it's kind of funny. I think it's just one half dozen the other because it's kind of like because there was no show originally. We have to have a band coming. That's part of the story. But I agree with you on some level. Like we don't need necessarily because we're just picking up where we left off on Andor. I mean, so it's kind of like, so to speak. So that's a very interesting dilemma. I think. I don't know. I don't think you're right or wrong on that. I think it's very interesting that there you go.
Well, I think I'm right, James.
Yeah, I knew. As soon
So,
as I said that, I knew he was gonna say some shit like that. Yeah, but you know what I mean. I'm saying, like, you know what I mean. Like, if this is like Andor season 3 for us, so to speak, then yeah, we wouldn't even need to see that because they probably wouldn't show it. They'd be together already, right? That's kind of we're almost trained already, right? This season. So I think it's kind of funny because there was no season 2, there was no season 1. When the movie came out, it was the movie. So you kind of
yeah.
have to show the
Uh, John, how did you feel? Do you feel it was? Did that bother you at all? Did you're like, nope, I just went along with it, and it was great that they just kind of created this team on the fly.
I guess. Well, I feel like I guess especially the end of the Rogue One movie, like this crew that flew into Scarif, like I do think that the majority of them already were established because like, Andor, like the final episode of Andor, gave us a scene where like Melshi was running and sort of like training this crew, right? And some of these faces were recognizable from Rogue One, and so I think the only people that really weren't introduced were people like uh, Jin and Chirrut and Baze, and so it wasn't that many characters that we didn't like. If you watched Andor season 2 and then watch Rogue One, you weren't really introduced to that many new characters. It was really only like a few characters. Um, and I feel like they were introduced enough, effectively enough in a way that like kind of it just fit with everything for me personally. Um, I have more issues, honestly, with the way the KX droid units were displayed.
What?
But between the Andor series and Rogue One, because in Andor these KX droids were seemingly invincible, and no matter how many times they were shot at, nothing was able to penetrate their armor.
Hmm.
And then when we were on Jeddah, we saw Jin shoot that one KX droid and kill it immediately, and then K2SO walked up going, "Did you know that wasn't me?" And she was like, "Yeah, of course." And I'm like, "All right, so how did one blaster shot kill that other KX droid when in Andor they were completely invincible?"
Very true. I agree. That makes total sense. I felt like K2SO would have lasted longer when he's in the control room on Scarif.
Yeah, and like it still took several, stormtroopers to take him down with many shots. But still, like that first shot that he took, there was clearly damage
Yeah.
to him. And like I said, again, Jin with one shot killed a KX unit to the point where K2SO was like, "Did you know that wasn't me?" And she was like, "Yeah, of course." And it's like, all right, well, in Andor a few days ago, we saw K2SO or KX units, I mean, being shot at with blasters and not a scratch on them.
I speaking of Jen Orso, I have to admit, even on this repeated viewing, that character does very little for me. Like
same
I
here.
don't like I feel like she's, somebody that you could have removed and that could have been Vel, now knowing the characters that we know from Andor season 2. John, as the it seems like the biggest person, the person most in the tank for Rogue One out of the three of us. Uh, how do you feel about Jen Orso's character? Is she essential? I feel like she eats up a lot of screen real estate, and I don't know if I needed that.
I feel like she was just made essential by the end of Andor But like again, this is because of the movie coming before the series. Like this may have turned out totally differently if the series was made before the movie. Um, so it's like, of course, you need to make it where Jyn Erso is the most important character here. But it's like, I agree with you at the same time. It's like, all right, maybe we could have sent Vel on a mission, right? If the Andor series happened first, maybe Vel gets sent on a mission, gets to know somebody, gets this information and brings it back to the rebellion. But the way that these two different sort of stories came out, it made it essential that Jin had to be a part of this.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, because really we're talking about how Andor season two seasons kind of lead in and segue into Rogue One. So, asking this just to the room, Tony Gilroy, of course, has a hand in Rogue One. And so of course, when it comes to Andor and making a season of that, he's just got stuff that he knows that he has to work with. He knows who shows up in Rogue One. So he's able to kind of pick the characters and retrofit them for whatever he needs to get them to the point that they need to be at in Rogue One. Uh, so I'm curious, like he picked Andor and great, and he focused on him, but then also focused on the ISB and focused on other aspects of the universe, but nothing with the Orso family until we get down to like the last couple episodes, and they're just mentioned in name only. Knowing how big of a part that Jin plays in Rogue One, would it have been better, or would you have wanted to have seen more of Jin's story leading up to this, so that Rogue One has seems to it pays off in having her being seen so much in that film.
I don't need her to show up at the end of the series, but I wouldn't have minded like just a mention of being like, "Oh, Galen Erso's working on this, and we have information about his daughter Jin Erso, who at one time was part of Saw Gerrera's crew or whatever." Just the mention of it would have been enough for me,
Hmm.
not like an actual you know viewing of her.
James?
It's funny. Again, we have this series. It's so fun. It's like it's. You're right. I'm kind of with you on it, Frank. Actually, I think I was kind of like it's. I don't know. It's parts of this was confusing for me. I have to admit that also because I'm watching it going, okay, because I have a million things going through my head. Like John was saying, like, okay, well, if this is like a third season of Andor, would I be upset? Like we're switching gears that heavily with someone else. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't feel strongly either way at the moment. But it's kind of like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want anybody to listen to feel like now I'm kind of poo-pooing on
Right,
Andor or
right,
I'm poo-pooing on Rogue One. I mean, both are great pieces of Star Wars content, but if the kind of framework that we're doing tonight is comparing how the two seasons of Andor kind of feed into Rogue One and how successful that is, and what are the differences that we notice now that we've watched two seasons of Andor. I mean, yes, Rogue One came out ahead of time. This is the whole reason we have two series of Andor now because of that. So it now, and I didn't. This is something that didn't even pop into my mind as I'm watching the two seasons of Andor, but then I put it on Rogue One, and I see just how much of Jyn Orso is part of this film, and then it just starts going in my head. It's like, boy, yeah, she eats up a lot of screen time in this movie.
Does you're
Uh,
right.
so much so that like, should she have been treated as a one of the kind of story components in Andor, so that we would have seen her storyline kind of building up over the course of the two seasons, so that it pays off more that we're seeing so much of her. I don't know.
That's the same, Frank. I'm like either way. Like it's kind of like you're right on some level. If you look at her a certain way, she is just waste. It's a waste of space. You could have
Yeah.
gave it to somebody else. But then you look at the other way, you're like, well, she's part of the story. I mean, she is part of the story and part of the Star Wars universe.
That's what I think. I think even just the slightest mention of her in Andor, right? Being like, oh, we so Galen Erso, we know he's this really important Imperial scientist, But we also have this information that his daughter might be imprisoned by the Imperials right now. Let's go save her, and maybe we can get this connection to him and to Saw. And just like even just the slightest mention of that in Andor, I think would have like helped bridge the series and the movie for me even better. I don't think they were bad. Like I actually still think the series was great. The movie's great. I can watch them one after the other and still really enjoy it. But I feel like even just like somebody mentioning, oh, this guy Galen Erso that you're talking about has a daughter who was with Saw, and now she's in prison uh, with the Imperials. Like just some sort of mention of that might have been like, oh, okay, here we go. I don't know.
Well, going to the flip side, like certainly the two seasons of a show that we watched was called Andor, but as we both discussed, as we've all discussed many times over the course of these two seasons, is that Andor is sometimes not the most important thing in these episodes. We've
No.
got, the whole ISB side of it. We've got Luthen's story as well. We've got Mon Mothma's story. So we've got many other storylines that we see and at times have been more interested in than Cassian's. But we see him then go into Rogue One. So I will ask you, based off of what we saw in these two seasons of Andor and then rolling into Rogue One, do you feel that kind of Rogue One is a nice payoff for everything that we saw in retrospect in Andor in these first two seasons of Andor? John?
Yeah, I do still think it's a very effective season 3 of Andor. Like I still think it's a very fitting end to the story. I think that it makes certain aspects of the movie more emotional, just like even because I found myself even when they go to Edu, right? And Andor's orders are to kill Galen Erso, right? And he doesn't do that. He doesn't pull the trigger, right? But they all get on the ship at the end to go back to Yavin. And there was a time when I watched the movie Rogue One, and you had Jyn Erso arguing with Cassian, saying like, "Oh, you lied to me. You were gonna kill my father." And you have Cassian Andor saying like, "We've all lost things for the rebellion. Like you think you're the only person? Like I've lost people." And now like it almost makes me in that particular scene side with Andor, because I'm like, this guy, he just lost Luthen. He he's lost all these other people, Brasso, characters that never existed before Rogue One, right before Andor came out. People like his mother, Marva, people like Brasso, knowing that he lost Luthen and knowing that he just rescued Clea. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, Jin? Fuck you. But before Andor came out, that same argument on that ship after Galen died on Edu, I sided with Jin more because I'm like, you were about to kill her father. Her father still died, but like I don't know anything about you or your story. And now Andor has created this whole other sort of like scenario where like we've watched Andor search for his sister, lose his mother, lose some of his best friends. Bix left him. He's lost B2 Emo, and it's like now I'm like, all right, yeah. All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm on Andor's side. He has given up way more than you have. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's true, James. I mean, there's only a certain amount of screen time and that we have. So, whether it's in the film or these two seasons of Andor. So while we would like, every character in Rogue One to get like this little, this prequel buildup in the Andor series, you know, there's only two seasons and already lots of, much like GH, lots of characters to satisfy. So adding more into the mix is probably not feasible. So should we be more forgiving of Rogue One and Andor for not focusing on every single character that we saw in Rogue One?
Well, you have to be forgiving anyway because these characters weren't in his brain back then. Well, they were. I don't know, but they weren't. We have now. It's he went back in time and got to do a series about a character that he started on in a movie. That's very rare. It's just the other way around. You do a series, and so it's like he got like a do over. You get to go. Okay, I get to go back and like revisit this character, create a whole new world before we even get there. But also give us hints because we had Yavin on Andor, so we had hints of what he is. This movie, I still say it's a great connector. It's a piece of the puzzle between that and episode 4. It's right there. But you start realizing, wow, like it's if he had that, if this had come out last, he made this afterwards. Just I wonder even how much better it would be, actually, or it could be it could be worse.
I doubt that.
But I'm just saying, I'm being devil's advocate, as being saying that it could come out and be a gigantic critical flop. We're all like, oh, what was that? But I'm thinking the other way, thinking because Andor 1 and 2 were so good that he could continue this into a 2-hour movie. I think it could probably work. I mean, but he went backwards. So again, it was all about his choices. It all goes down to his choices of what he chose to do, ultimately, is what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said previously, this is not Andor's the Tony Gilroy experience. Rogue One is definitely a combination of Gareth Edwards and Tony Gilroy experience. And so, how much of, either is in there, can be debated or analyzed. But so who knows whether it's those two creatives, bouncing against off each other gives us what we have, or, would this film be better or worse if it had just been Tony Gilroy doing it from the beginning? We'll never know.
We'll never know, Frank.
Just like how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop.
I tried counting, but I can't.
The one thing I will say, though, is especially coming off the prequels, is, and yes, George Lucas, if you have not watched, the ILM documentaries that are on Disney Plus, season 2 is right now is of ILM, and it's great. It's dealing with starting with the working on the prequels and evolving ILM from there. But how George was really invested in digital filmmaking. And yes, he's done so much for the industry in terms of technological advances. But for the prequel trilogy, especially the second and third films, to be using so much digital sets that it just has a feel to it. And I feel like going back to Rogue One, when you're seeing it on Scarif, and you're even from the trailers, I remember getting excited when you're seeing stormtroopers walking around like a more tropical landscape. I found that really cool. And rewatching this film, I was really excited to see that Scarif set piece. So, I mean, that I feel like is a great connector with Andor, is just the way they used real locations to shoot rather than relying so much on the digital stuff. It really sells me on Rogue One. John, did you appreciate the settings of Scarif?
100%. Yeah. Oh, I think it looks great. Like this is a great set. It's oh God, it really is a great setting, and it's so different than what we normally get. Whether that's on like a forest planet, or more of like a Coruscant setting where there's a lot of buildings, like sort of like a metropolitan setting. Like the fact that you get like stormtroopers and rebels fighting on like a tropical location is so fun. It makes no sense, but it's awesome.
Yeah, like James, I feel like that's when Star Wars is when it's best, when it is showing you things you haven't seen before, taking these familiar elements and characters and putting them in different environments.
Mandalorian did it first. When they did it first, it was like we got to see we saw another side of a planet, literally. That was established. There's other places on the same planet. Like, what? That was crazy. I mean, I was like, what's going on there? And seeing different landscapes. And then I saw the behind the scenes of that stuff. I haven't seen the other ones, but I know they were showing how they built these gorgeous sets. So it's part digital, part set. It's just crazy. That was the first. And then and we've seen all these different worlds. We've seen so many now in all these series. They're all so, I will say the Star Wars universe is basically being really fleshed out with each of these series. And then you have the movies in there. they're really fleshed out. It's like, so I appreciate any, I like scare, I like all. Again, the movie set, I liked the stuff. I mean, it fit the Andor narrative. I just wonder if this came out last, would it even be even better? Would it even be even broader? And the way they're shooting, the way they shoot Andor is just very different. Rogue One is shot like a regular movie, Star Wars movie. But I just wonder if we had, that part. But oh no, I love when they go somewhere that I've never seen before. I love the different aliens and animals. I love all that stuff. I like to see what kind of things they have. I have one of these books, the Encyclopedia of Species of Star Wars. I'm always reading it, like, oh, I remember that one. Like, so to me, I love that in the Star Wars series.
Well, I know Tony Gilroy did an interview after this, after Andor season two, where he says he feels like because of the amount that he has written for these two seasons of this series, that he feels like he's in his peak form as a writer, uh, and as a creative. And so I know he's working on a film that he's trying to get off the ground. So I can only to your point, James, I would feel that if you were to do Rogue One now, like just given his maturation, just even from Rogue One through Andor season two, that yes, if you were to do Rogue One now, it would, I think it could be nothing but better than what we saw originally.
I agree. I totally agree. But I mean, again, it's still a good film. I'm just
Yes.
saying now, knowing what he has would have in his hands now. Like, right, he matured since then. You're the same person when you do a movie like 10, 15 years ago. And you're the same person.
Yeah. And you lock into the way you want to tell these types of stories too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, to know that now, it's like, oh yeah, I would shoot it like this.
Yes.
Uh, Speaking of now, uh, these films, we've got returning characters that we see in here, and we've got three. We see Princess Leia, we see
Yes.
Grand Moff Tarkin, and of course we see Sith Daddy himself, Darth Vader.
And Mousy
And R2D2 for a second.
Oh well, who cares about those chumps?
Oh,
and C-3PO.
It felt weird to see like those two were just shoehorned. Those are the two that I felt really shoehorned from you. R2D2 and C3PO right there in the oven.
Yeah, they were thrown in there just purely for like feel good
I liked it. So screw
nostalgia vibes.
exactly. So I liked it.
I did not need to see that to know that at the end of Rogue One, that they are on the same ship as Leia is. Like I just know that in my head. I did not to see need to see them on Yavin to be like, oh, okay, thank goodness. Thank goodness now I know how those two got on the ship. Great. Uh, but
I
watching this again, it's really having time away from the initial scrutiny of it. Leia and Tarkin, two predominantly CGI created characters, at least in the face, played by actors with like digital facial overlays. Grand Moff Tarkin, for me, I have now being years removed from the initial release of the film and the talk around Tarkin, I was fine with his appearance. James, how did you feel about seeing a digitally rendered Grand Moff Tarkin back on your screen this time on Rogue One?
it was fine. The big reveal, everything. I was totally fine with it. No problem whatsoever. And it goes back to seeing a CGI Luke, Mark Hamill, in Mandalorian. It worked for me. It totally worked. And seeing Leia too, it worked. But seeing him, though, yeah, it was fine. I had no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, because John, I feel like that's the sticky point. It's like certainly with Luke, Mark Hamill, while older, is still alive. So it's like it feels fine if like he's on board because he can say like, oh yeah, I totally endorse them doing this. But it gets stickier when it's Peter Cushing's relatives saying, oh yeah, we totally support this. It still doesn't feel as right because it's not the actual actor themselves saying like, yes, I authorize this.
I can't speak for the Cushing family, but if
Now, this is your
somebody,
opportunity, John. I'm giving
yeah,
you that platform.
yeah,
This is your moment. They're listening.
Oh my
if
god!
if I was Peter Cushing's son and somebody told me they wanted to make a movie that included my father even after his death, I'd say, "Fuck yeah, do it."
I'm the same way. I think
Yeah,
also
and my
also
dad died, and you want to put him in a movie?
yeah.
What if it was an
Do it.
adult film?
Do it.
Wow.
Give him an extra big member.
John Dumphy.
No, but I mean, I'm with John. I'm like, I think this is the Star Wars. He didn't leave up. He didn't leave for number one. It was no bad terms. If he had left in a blaze of like "f you" and Star Wars, like that whole thing, yeah, that's a little sacrilegious to bring him back on the show. But I mean, the movie. But I think I think if he was alive, he'd want to do it. If he was alive and was able, he'd probably do it himself. So in this case, I don't have a problem with that, with using his likeness and all that. I don't have a problem with that. I feel like it falls in line with it's almost like an almost an homage, like honoring for a little bit, saying we know he's not here in real life, but he lives on screen. So Frank, when I die, you can CGI me, you AI me, whatever for future GH spotlights. They can use my image on anything.
All right, what about on the daytime Emmys? Can we use you as a red carpet
Oh,
correspondent
yeah, I'm
digitally?
dead. So yeah, please, I'll be dead. So yeah, that's fine. This is AI James. This isn't real life James who said fuck them. This is AI James. So yeah, of course. We have to Oh yeah.
AI James is all about show my descendants the money.
Yeah, exactly. So do what you have to do for my kids and grandkids. So do what you gotta do. So yes, that's fine. I support it. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, Frank does bring up a valid point in terms of using people who are gone. But I know, like with Carrie Fisher, they obviously brought in her daughter, for the third. Like, so they did a little bit. They did a little stuff in the third, in number nine, but in the series. But I mean, I'm saying I think it's they're part of the family. I think very few of them leave disgruntled. There's a few that do, obviously, have little problems with them, but I think it's fine.
And there's also part of me that's like, guys, who are we to judge on that? If the person's not has passed away and the family
Yeah.
has decided it, like that should be it. I don't need, Joe Blow on the social media, opining about this, like, oh, this is such in poor form that this person is back on screen.
Also, Frank, we don't know what he left in his will or trust. If it's like any likeness of me can be, I wonder if they have power over all of that. I do because I can't remember with James Earl Jones too because now he's gone, but they have some of his voice they can still use, right? They say he can still use it.
He
Didn't he
sold
like
he sold
he
his voice.
purposely
Oh
recorded? Yeah,
Yeah.
he recorded
yeah,
this stuff so they could continue to use it. And
yeah.
I feel like I'd be the same way. Like if I was in a Star Wars movie and then I died and my children were, responsible for my like name, image, likeness, whatever, I'd be like, all right, yeah, any Star Wars movie that wants to use my face or my voice, let them. Because I want to be part of the Star Wars universe. Like that's like who wouldn't want that?
I would like it that, John, you would also get like scans of your butt, just like in case they want me to do nudity in Star Wars film, I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're
Allow
not asking for that,
yeah.
John.
Please allow Lucasfilm to scan my butt. I would tell them that. Yeah.
We don't need it though, Dad. Just in case, kids. Just in case.
Just in case. I'm here to save the galaxy after all.
I am David Galaxy.
Yeah, if scans of my butt are necessary, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I mean,
Necessary. Yeah.
it then, to further go into this, it does then kind of like, are
Go
we
into
seeing,
what?
the whole with digital stuff? It's like we're not seeing the,
So
you know,
not my butt.
yeah, again, like with Luke in Mandalorian season 3, hey, yeah, we're at least Mark Hamill's there consulting, and he's talking with the digital, with the actor that's kind of being the stand-in for him. So it feels like, oh yeah, this is kind of a more true. This is what Mark Hamill would do in this performance. I feel like there's that extra layer of like when an actor is passed on, that even with them being recreated and while it may have the same look visually, would their performance be the same? Like what we saw of Grand Moff Tarkin's performance in Rogue One, would it have been different if Peter Cushing had been alive and was able to perform that role? I don't know. But I also feel like those are also the things that get involved in these conversations when we talk about bringing back deceased actors in a digital way in films.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Fair.
now the future. That's now, right? So we're going to see it. We're already seeing holograms on stages. We're seeing voices being they're putting people's voices on like "Baby Got Back," whatever. It's like, come on, folks. I mean, it's happening more and more, and people are demanding the release of them now. In Japan, there are hit singers. It's all AI generated, and they actually are known. They're AI. There's known they're AI generated, and they have a persona,
Yeah.
and people are into that. So I think, Frank, I think you're going to have to roll over and take it hard because I think we're going that direction. I think Frank, you got to just roll over, put your butt in the air, and just take it because it's coming now, Frank Moran. They're going. I think we're going to see more and more of that. Whereas we like, or I mean, now, I mean, a lot of these things, we have to revisit older stuff, and that character, they want to show them in one flashback scene, but it's not a flashback. We're just kind of they can have them on screen for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 30 seconds. In the old days, you bring them back, but if they're dead and it's important to the story. There's a side note. There's a show called EastEnders. It's a big soap in England. And one of the characters was leaving the show. She had been on it for 40 years. And they brought back the actress who played opposite her for all those years. She had left the show years earlier. But she was getting older. And they did some stuff. I think they had cheesecloth and Vaseline all on the lens, whatever. But they were trying to show her when she was youngish visiting this dying woman. And it kind of worked. So I'm saying now with AI and CG and all that stuff, they could do it where they can literally have that young face of the young woman and create a whole scene. Not saying it's right, wrong, whatever. I don't want anybody coming at me. I'm just saying that that's what's happening now. And if that family or whoever the manufacturers are of that can get money off of it, then good for them. I mean, I say let's pay people for our likeness, yes. But if they agree to it and you want to do that and make sense of the story, then Frank, I think that's what's going to happen more and more. I think. I mean, I don't know, but I think it's going to happen more.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, two examples were the last Indiana Jones film, I mean, where they made Harrison Ford look more like the classic Indiana Jones, put it back in that time frame. So they used that digital de-aging on him.
Yeah.
And then there was a Star Trek short that was released last year where it was Sam Witwer was kind of like the playing Kirk, and they kind of digitally superimposed Kirk's William Shatner's features on top of him. But he was doing a whole thing where he reunited with Kirk on his deathbed, with Spock on his deathbed.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So, and it was great. There's really no dialogue in that short, just a lot of facial acting. And it was great. And watching the behind the scenes and how they brought that all to life and how meticulous they were about Sam Witwer was about, emulating William Shatner as much as possible. It was interesting.
I was thinking too, Frank. We have watched soaps, and that's some prime timers too. But people who play twins before it's all split screen and background act, all this stuff. Now you start doing it where you do where it's you and it create an AI version of you, and you just do this whole recording, and or you just do all your stuff. You do a whole AI version of you that does all the opposite. I mean, that saves money and time and everything and people.
That's true.
I mean, if it makes sense to a story, and then people are getting compensated. We're getting compensated for the likeness. It's because it's a business. So I want people get compensated for you use my leg. I want to get paid for my leg. I mean that's what I want. So I feel that's the same way.
Well, I feel like for Tarkin, it does two things. One, it ties us back into A New Hope. It got a very I don't want to say beloved, but like a character that people knew, resonated with, enjoyed from A New Hope when it originally aired, that we'd never seen again since Tarkin gets killed when the Death Star explodes. But seeing as this is leading up into that, and we're seeing the Death Star kind of operational and being tested, uh, having Tarkin be involved in that makes sense from a story point of view. But then also what it does for Krennic's character too, because it kind of establishes that Krennic, who thinks he's like this, so important to the Empire, Tarkin really just kind of, kind of puts him in his place and kind of just steps over him and just like, no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, you did a great job on this, but I'll be taking over now.
Okay, he was like, thanks for everything.
Yeah, like as I talked about,
this is also where like the animated series come in so handy because like Tarkin is included in these Clone Wars episodes, as well as the Bad Batch episodes.
Yeah, he
Like
was.
Tarkin is a central figure in the Clone Wars and in Bad Batch.
Yeah.
So it's like this helps expand on his character there because he was if you are watching everything in like the timeline chronological order, you are introduced to Tarkin very early in the Clone Wars, get to see him more in the Bad Batch, then you see him in Rogue One, then you see him in A New Hope, and that's the last time you see him. If you're watching everything chronologically, it's like Tarkin becomes an old character almost in a way because he was introduced in so many other sort of like mediums. It's like originally when Star Wars A New Hope was the first thing that ever came out with Star Wars, that's where you first met Tarkin. But if you watch everything now, the way it's come out, whether it's live action series, animated series, movies, whatever, it's like Tarkin becomes an old character by the time you watch A New Hope if you watch everything chronologically.
Oh, that's cool. And what I like is that I feel like for me, and I talked about this last week too, is that just the recontextualization of Krennic, because Krennic just feels like he's just like the top dog in Andor season 2. When he's
Yeah.
in the first episode, he's assembling that crew to kind of plot out what are we gonna do to get rid of those people on this planet. It's like I was dining with the Emperor, I was having lunch, to now just seeing that he's constantly being excluded in Rogue One. Like Tarkin is just like, nope, no, I'll let you know. I'll tell the Emperor about you, but that's it. It just feels like it was Krennic just talking a bigger game amongst like these people underneath him to make himself seem more important. I like to
Yeah.
believe that was the case.
Yeah, I think it's the case. Of course. It makes some seem
Yeah.
more. I think it was the case also, completely. So yeah.
I will ask both of you, and I know it's Darth Vader, so of course we're predisposed to wanting to see more of him. But the scene where Krennic goes to visit Darth Vader,
Hmm.
man, I don't know. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, maybe it's Darth Vader having like talking for so long. Like, I feel like Darth Vader talking works better in short bursts. He's a great menacing figure, and you say be a man of few words. But like that Krennic scene, doing a lot of chatting, and I don't know. I was just kind of like, this is just kind of, eh.
Frank, have you forgotten? Like him and Luke talked for a long time. And it finally
Admittedly,
comes out that he's his daddy.
that's admittedly, it's been a long time since I've
Yeah, I
watched
know.
the entire.
I'm saying that's something when you said I go, but like you're right. He doesn't talk. He talks more in the original trilogy. You think about when we see him. But the whole him and Luke, they talk a lot in the trilogy. When you think about it, they have some scenes where they do a lot of talking.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was. Like did not, the voice just didn't like. I know it's James Earl Jones, but just something about it just did not. It seemed off to me as like being like like the Darth that I was expecting in my head. John, how
Uh,
did you feel?
Man, I don't know. I guess I think a lot of this stuff has to do with like desperation. So it's like in the scenes that we saw of Darth Vader in this movie, uh, up until the very, very, very end, like was he as desperate as we may have come to expect him? Because like we meet Darth Vader, right? For the first time in A New Hope, where the rebels have already stolen these plans for the Death Star. So he's on a rampage to try to stop this from getting out. Um, in Revenge of the Sith, we see like the creation of Darth Vader. And it's like, so now we're seeing the in between. And it's like, I don't know, has he reached that point of ruthlessness yet where like that we're accustomed to for Darth Vader? Like,
Hmm.
I
Now,
don't know. I don't know what's wrong with either of you people. Darth Vader, when he shows up, and when he first shows up, and always makes an entrance, homeboy always makes an entrance, and he looks and the thing opens, and he has the cape, and he comes there. You hear the breathing first. What is wrong with you people? If that's how it's supposed to be, that it was wonderful. There was nothing wrong with it. It was fine. Everything was fine. He had a little funny moment with him, and he walked out. That's how it was, and he came back at the end. Those are the two scenes we need him in. I was wrong, you people. It was great.
uh, not at all biased from a man who has a Darth Vader is my father podcast.
Well, I do. Yeah, I may be a little biased, but I was wrong to people. I will advocate for Darth Vader. I don't think it was too much or anything. I think it was fine. Me and as a Darth Vader fan, I agree with you guys, and I'm glad he didn't show up in Andor. I'm glad there was no scene with him. I'm glad they didn't do that. So I'm saying, and him and Palpatine, I'm glad there was no scenes with them. That's fine. But in this, it was great.
Part of me almost would I like to have seen Palpatine? Yes, he's a huge figure, but to see him in the context of Andor, where this isn't talking about like Sith manipulations and stuff, it would him be just talking about like public policy and imperial minutia with people. Would I want would I wanted to see a scene with just Palpatine just talking about that not that that just really minor stuff. Who knows?
You want to see Palpatine in HR meetings? Okay, kids. Which generals are not working this week? That sexual harassment, we don't mind that. We're evil. I don't know.
Any disappointment that we didn't see Andy Serkis in
Right.
season 2 of Andor or Rogue One?
I mean, Tony Gilroy said that he felt like there wasn't, like he left it in such a great place as he falls out of the prison and lands in the water. He said that having him in season two would have like shrunken the universe a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like that may have been the only loose end, was that Andy Serkis led this prison riot, was about to escape, said he couldn't swim. We never saw him die or anything like that. And then it's like, no, we just never saw Andy Serkis again. And it's like that might be the only like loose end that we didn't get an answer to. Like, what happened to Andy Serkis's character?
What do you think? Do you think he made it off planet?
There's a part of me, because I just want to feel this way, that he did make it, Andy.
Well, fantasies are built on hope, John.
On hope,
Rebellions are built on hope.
always hope, black hope, right here.
I also thought that Andor, both seasons of Andor, especially season two, I felt like did a really nice job to kind of to show how the Empire was in dire straits towards the end of the season two, where it felt like the Death Star was more of a like a last desperate gasp to kind of exert their authority and regain control of the galaxy. Because like just watching it as Rogue One and A New Hope, it just feels like, oh, these are just yeah, you know, such a juggernaut that like the odds are so insurmountable. But I feel like this show the Andor really showed that they were on the decline, and I thought that it was an interesting kind of way to kind of view Rogue One now through the lens of like, oh no, the Empire is struggling, and they need this to work because it has to, otherwise they know they're gonna fail.
We got a post-credit scene at the end of season 1,
Oh, right.
where we found out that Andor, essentially, and all of his fellow prison mates were helping to build the Death Star. We did not get a post-credit scene in season 2. Do you think we should have? And what do you think it should have been?
The post credit scene is the movie. That's the post credit scene.
But could there have been something
No,
in between that they showed?
no.
Or
They already showed. They already left us with cliffhangers on a couple people. So like kind of cliffhangers. It's kind of like so it's already out. So there's nothing more to say unless you're going to give us another story, another season of story. To me, it's like that's it.
So you don't think there could have been another post-credit scene? Maybe like maybe a post-credit scene where they showed like Luke
you know what I would have
or
done?
something. You know what I mean? Like something.
I would have had like here's how I would have ended Rogue Andor season two. Would have had uh, Andor and K2SO taking off, flying off into the sky to head off on their adventure. Then we see Bix with cradling the baby there on her planet. We go to credits, and then just before we get to the end, we see all of Rogue One, and then That they should have just inserted all of Rogue One into episode 12 of Andor season 2, and then we could have had just a little Lucasfilm thing at the end show up. That would have been the perfect after credits. Just the whole film right there.
Damn. 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 That's not what I was expecting.
Just what a great, oh God, I would love to do that. Just what a great, credit scene. It's just an entire movie. There you go. That's your credit scene, guys.
That'd be funny. That would be funny. They did that.
Because especially people will get excited watching this, like, ooh, we got a little credit scene. This is interesting. Wait, this, and as it goes on minute by minute by minute, they're like, wait, this is just a movie.
It just
This is
keeps
just a
going.
movie. What's going on?
It's like 3 hours.
Honestly, I think the best post-credit scene would have been something with Jin Urso.
Possibly, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Like we just watched all of season 2 of Andor, and it's like now, um, like Cassian is meeting up with somebody, some kind of source or something that says, "Hey, you're searching for Galen Erso, or you're searching for the Death Star, you're searching for this weapon. Well, the creator's daughter is imprisoned." Like we should have found out. That should have been the post-credit scene. I feel like for season 2 of Andor was being like, "Oh, you heard that Galen Erso is building this weapon? Well, his daughter is imprisoned by the Empire right now."
That, or I would have, if schedules would have aligned and the budget was there, I would have liked to have seen Felicity Jones back and see her getting arrested, and knowing that's what's putting her in prison at the end of that.
Well, I don't even need to see her being put in prison. Just like, oh, Cassian finding out that like, hey, we're searching for Galen Erso and his daughter, we just found out is in Imperial custody.
Why do you hate Felicity Jones so much, John?
And then, dang.
You don't even want to see her? That's like, what's going
Well,
on?
it's not that I don't want to see her. It's just we could have shown her face, and I'm just saying, it's like, all right, we have all these clues, right? Kyber, uh, Jeddah, Urso, blah blah blah, super weapon. Um, Now, okay, we find out that we have to go find Jin, and that's the post-credit scene.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like watching that whole Rogue One there, Draven saying like, "Hey, don't listen to what they said to you in their end, or you got to kill Orso." Uh, I don't know. I still don't feel like what's why do we got to kill him? Like they've already built the Death Star. Don't you want to keep him alive to figure out a way to interrogate him to learn how you could maybe stop the Death Star?
Not only stop the Death Star, but maybe we can build it a weapon, a weapon of our own with
Yeah.
this genius.
So yeah, I don't understand why they were like, nope, gotta kill him.
Yeah, maybe we can build our own Death Star, right?
Oh my god. Yes.
To go back to Saw Gerrera, like I and the ideas of like, hey, maybe there could be a series on him.
He's not my favorite character in this show, so I don't really give a shit about him. I'll tell you who I'd rather see. Other than that, I want to see more Mon Mothma. I want to see more. I want to see more. Bill again, the Organa family. I want to see more. I want to see more of Leia coming into power and
I
all.
feel like there's more to Saw's story though. Honestly,
I'm not a big. I'm not a big. Just for me, not a big fan. I mean, it's not anything I'm interested in.
I don't think there's anything exciting to tell about Mon Mothma anymore though. I think Andor and Rogue One and A New Hope tell us everything we need to know. She had a family. She abandoned them because she believed in the empire, in the rebellion, and wanted to fight against the Empire. Like I feel like there's more stories to tell with stories like Galen Erso and Jyn Erso and even Bail Organa and
I
Leia
just said,
and
yeah, as I said, the Organa family. I'm happy with them. I'm saying there's other characters I like more that I want to see on screen. I just he was fine, but I just wasn't not one of my people.
For me, like Saw, I feel like was one of those characters that works in small doses.
Yeah,
And so I feel like he could be part of a series, but he couldn't be the main part of it. I just feel like for me, I don't think there'd be enough of that character to sustain him being the main thrust of a series.
I think that the Saw Gerrera series could be like an animated series that would do very well.
Hmm. Uh, Now, one other set of characters that we get here. I mean, Bodhi, we know he's a pilot. We don't really get much about him other than knowing that he's a pilot that had a change of heart and talked to Galen Erso, and then he's off and he goes to find Saul. Uh, or not Saul. I'm thinking my Breaking Bad Saul Guerrera. There you go. I'm thinking Better Call Saul. He went to go
So,
find
I mean,
Bob
if
Odenkirk.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh, John, though, we do get Shirut and Bezo, no, sorry, not Baze. So, I mean, Chirrut is kind of like a Guardians of the Will, which is a nice nod to George Lucas's first title to his original draft of Star Wars. Uh, I don't know. Those two characters had a nice little relationship between themselves. Again, we don't there's we get the amount of time we get with them in the movie. So, for them, do you feel they're worthwhile additions to the Star Wars universe, if only just for this brief amount of time that we get to see him in this movie?
Absolutely. And I also think that if we had sort of a animated series about Saw and his rebels, we could get more information about people like Shirut and Baze, because they probably, Saw's rebels probably already know who they are, and are leaving them alone because they're not Empire people. And it's like, all right, well, we can get more stories about Jeddah and Shirut and Baze, and get more than about Saw's story in the process.
Uh, John, I mean James, are you getting yourself a Chirrut and Baze tattoo?
Right up my penis. No. no, I'm not. No. I mean, though I agree the characters are essential in the movie. They're fine in the movie. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not interested in anything more from them. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It's again, we have so much that's not being told in the Star Wars universe. It's an embarrassment of riches, almost so to speak. So I'm kind of like, I'm with you. Some characters on some shows are good as supporting characters, and for that story, and then that's it for me. Then there are others. For me to have a spin-off or anything, I have to really want to like them and want to see more of them. So I agree with John. I mean, John's selling that Saw series. I'll give it to him. But I was like, he's trying to sell it. But I'm saying, but he wants to see more of it. So I'm like, there's other characters I want to see more. I want to see more of myself. But I just some of these characters, I'm like, they're good for the story. They're fine. Their scenes were efficient for enough for me to know what I need to know. They're gonna die anyway, so
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Donnie Yen? He's great. So happy to always see him in a very popular mainstream American film. Uh, if I were in that world, though, I would have probably asked him several times, like, "Do you have to keep saying, I'm one with the force with me out loud? Can you just think it instead?"
you
Because
just you just take it. You know,
man, he just keeps saying that so many times. Like, shh, can you just?
oh,
Yeah, but you know what? I love it though
me too.
because he's saying that in a time after all the Jedi were murdered in Order 66. So hearing somebody still say, have that belief, I'm one with the Force is with me, after, this incredible massacre of all the Jedi is like very powerful to me.
I agree. I agree.
But silence is golden, gentlemen. So, uh, you know, just use your inside voice.
Inside voice, easy
Yeah.
inside voice. Yes.
Another change too is originally that they were going to have Cassian and Jin do a little smoochy smooch at the end, and they even filmed it, but they decided to pull it out. Uh, I feel like it only makes it better. Even during the original watch of Rogue One, I did like that there was not like a necessary kind of like, oh, and now we're in love, or
Yeah.
we have some kind of romantic connection. And then only enriched more after watching these 2 seasons of Andor and seeing Cassian's journey. So John, how did you feel about having that change to Jin and Cassian's relationship, as well as at the end when we see, as the planet is exploding, we see Cassian just kind of like look away from the explosion and look, and we see his eyes open towards the camera at the end. Uh, how'd you feel with that as like your final image of Cassian Andor?
Yeah, I loved it because I feel like this tied in well into the story because I feel like, especially knowing how Andor ends with Bix, who has Andor's child in her arms, and it made me feel a little bit like, okay, this kind of pays off to me. This story between Andor and Jin, because now when I first watched Rogue One, I thought there might be some kind of romantic connection that never actually paid off because they never kissed. They never had any sort of like really truly romantic interaction. So that leaves room for Andor and Bix and their love story and their child. Um, but it makes me feel more like Andor saw, he kind of saw Jin as a sister, which was another storyline that we followed in Andor, which was that Cassian was looking for his sister, and it's like, okay, well maybe he found his sister in Jin. So it doesn't have to be like a romantic sort of connection. It's like you made a connection with this person based on your sister and your both of your sort of feelings and like um aspirations to sort of break out of this, imperial rule that you were falling under before. It's like it's not a romantic connection, it's just a connection that you've made where you're fighting for the same thing against this terrible power in the in the empire.
Uh, James, do you share John's sentiment, or did you want them to just get it on?
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad there was. I don't need to see romance. I'm sorry, kids. I don't care about romance in my space movies. They throw it in there. They throw it in there. They have to. I'm glad there wasn't. And then they're fighting a rebellion. Their brain should be focused on the rebellion. And how crazy the rebellion. Everybody fight with each other and everything. They had to be focused. So I didn't need to see them, in the middle of everything, coming for one last smooch, which is some John Williams music. No, I didn't need to see that at all. We're all good. We're all good.
All right. Well, you guys are such prudes.
We're Victorian. It's called Victorian.
Why, Frank, were you looking for the step bro, step sis
There you go. Yeah.
ending?
Frank wanted it. He's like, God, I didn't get it.
No, no, no.
Damn, step bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
I'm always down when there's not the kind of the manipulation to feel like, oh, well, and guess what, guys? After all this, they did fall in love.
Right.
So I'm like, no, no, no. I'm glad we eschewed we avoided all that, and we just were able to just enjoy the relationship. Yeah, it's also again that ties into my whole thing. It's like I felt like there wasn't enough time in this film for them to really build a lot of stuff, and so I couldn't have bought a romance into this. At best, that they are, that they have a, a genuine beginnings of a friendship built by the end of this. Yes, I could buy that, and then cut short by the ends of the film.
So I saw the ending a little different. Ending a little differently. I kind of saw her as the one shielding him from what was coming, and
Mm.
that it was very much her kind of saying thank you, so to speak. There because she had tears in her eyes. She was facing the stuff coming towards them. He had his eyes closed. I felt like she was comforting him after everything he's been through. I felt like he was in her arms to feel the warmth of just everything. His mother, friends. I felt differently. I thought it was a whole different thing. I was like, so she took on it was coming, and she looked right at it, and he was the one kind of like, okay, here it comes. I saw it differently.
I thought it was an interesting choice. I mean, and still, that you see him open his eyes at the end, right there,
Mhm.
out of that embrace. Usually other parts would have just kept it closed, and you would have just seen it. But it definitely feels like there was stuff going through Cassian's head at that last moment. That he's opening his eyes and he's feeling some stuff, about the people he's lost, about the people that he's never going to get a chance to see again. Yeah, I mean, and to think that took place before we saw everything we know in these two seasons of Andor.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it definitely enriches that moment a lot.
Yes, I agree.
And then, of course, James, we get to your big final scene where we just get to see your boy, sabers up, and he's going to work.
I, so
Daddy clocks in.
he clocks in. So knowing he's coming, and I know it's happening, we know it's coming, and know when it's. I'm like, okay, everybody's dying, everything's getting taken care of. We know they're understanding it. You got to pass that thing along. You know it's coming, and so when it starts to happen, I was like, okay, here we go. And I was just knocking everybody, just knocking everybody, just choking, fucking, and the force used everywhere. Um, it was no less still terrifying. It was like, there you go. And like I was still kind of going, when they get it out, just I mean, that little sliver in the doors, right? I mean, I was still rooting for. I was like, oh my god, it's going to happen, knowing it's going to happen. But like, I still got caught up in it, and I was like, it was just very cool. Now seeing it again in a rewatch, that we got Darth Vader somewhere else, not Anakin,
Yeah.
Darth somewhere else. And because he's in the galaxy, him and Palpatine are running there in the galaxy, everywhere in the galaxy. So it was kind of cool to see him in a different context and to protect the Empire, right? To protect everything. So it's kind of like, okay, it was very cool to see him. It was very cool just to have him somewhere else than just the main three. And then, at least it's six. I guess he's in. I remember that's six. Oh my god, what is it? Three? He's in. Also, he shows up at the end or
Yeah.
whatever. I remember. Yeah. So it's kind of like we got in another context. So that to me is just very cool as a Darth Vader fan.
Well, yeah, especially John, because this is a Darth Vader that we're seeing now after we're seeing the prequel trilogy, where we've got to see Jedis in their prime and seeing what they can do, stuff that we never even got to see in the original trilogy. Even Vader, who was, still a Jedi, just the filmmaking and the sensibilities and everything that they could do as Jedis had not quite as like kind of resolved itself or evolved to the point that we got to see what they were able to do in the prequel trilogy. So now, bang, here we come to the end of the film, and we get to see Darth Vader now through the lens of like all the cool stuff we've ever got to see Jedis do in the prequel trilogy, kind of unleashed upon this rebellion fleet.
No.
Uh, John, I did. I mean, because I knew it ties into A New Hope, but the first time I ever saw it, I don't know if you felt the same way. Like this whole Darth Vader stuff, I remember how excited I was. Like I did not know it was coming, and how genuinely exciting it was to watch it for the first time. Can you recall how it felt to see that on the first time you ever saw Rogue One?
Oh my God. I mean, I remember when I went to the theaters to watch Rogue One for the first time, right? I was blown away by the movie, first of all. But one of my first things that I like wanted to do because I knew like God, it's hard to describe because I watched this movie, Rogue One, in the theater that led up directly to A New Hope, which had come out, what, 45 years earlier? Something like that, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm watching a movie that ends with a CGI Princess Leia that leads directly into A New Hope, which is the first movie ever made in this whole Star Wars saga. And I still remember being like just blown away because I'm like, I can't believe that I can now like watch a movie that continues from the beginning of the story that started 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago. And and now we have a whole other series that like builds on the years before that. And it's just there's a part of me that feels like it's hard to even believe that this like exists. This whole thing. Because like if I told somebody 10 years ago, like, listen, we're gonna start watching Star Wars together, and we're gonna start with this movie called A New Hope, and we're gonna watch The Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi, and then we're gonna go to the prequels, and it's like now there's a whole movie before A New Hope that you need to watch. There's two seasons of a show before this movie Rogue One that you need to watch, and it's like everything has changed about how you watch the entire Star Wars saga now. Everything has changed.
Mhm.
So, John, when you have your child in 9 months, um, uh, uh, and you're going to sit down with your child and introduce them to Star Wars for the first time, how are you going to do it? Are you going to start with the Acolyte and work forward chronologically? Are you going to start with the New Hope and kind of go back and forth in time? Are you going to include the animated films? Are you going to include the TV series? Are you just going to stick, or the animated series and the TV series? Are you only going to stick with the films? How are you going to handle it?
We are going to watch Andor season 1, then season 2, then Rogue One, then the original trilogy, and then we'll go back to the prequels and fill in with Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels as we need to.
Interesting.
Is
Uh,
there a tree out there that has all been on order now?
uh,
I never looked yet. I haven't looked yet.
Yeah,
I'm sure there must.
we have to look. We have to look.
I haven't looked yet. So I was like, is there now at the release of Andor, is there a now updated like chronological? I know certain shows are the same universe, like Ahsoka and Mandalorian and stuff, but is there an order now?
And John, what about Solo? When are you going to have them watch Solo?
When it is necessary.
I was like, should we do a solo rewatch?
And at no point does John mention the sequel trilogy.
Nope, he
That
doesn't.
did not come up at all. So John, do you never show those to your children? Do you say like, these do not exist?
Does not exist.
No, I will. I will show them because unfortunately, Luke Skywalker came to a sad ending. It happens
Yeah,
in life.
right.
Hmm. But is there a long gap between the time that you show them all the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy do you wait like 10 years and then show them the sequel trilogy?
No, they'll know. They'll know the history of the galaxy.
Because you don't want to just like give them that, like, this is just a taste of what it felt like for us to wait between uh Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens
No,
and
I need to educate them. I need to educate them now. My
and
children.
feel that disappointment at such a mediocre film.
Yeah,
All right.
they need to know.
Well then also, yes, and also make sure you tie in all the Tales of animated miniseries as well. Uh,
Yes.
yes, so man, John, you've got quite a programming slate to put out there for your children.
Late. I love
Yeah.
There you go. Get ready.
I still don't actually have any children, but I'm working hard for them as we speak.
it. That's funny.
What worries you more, John, that you'll have a child and they will love the sequel trilogy, or that you'll have a child and they just hate Star Wars in general? They just don't hate, they just have zero interest in it.
If my children, if I ever have them, if they don't care about Star Wars, I will be supremely disappointed.
Get ready. Okay.
I'm living that life, John, and it's not great. I'll tell you that.
Also, Josie's not into it.
Not really. So, wah, wah, wah.
I would say my daughter
Well,
aren't into it either, so they're not into it either. So, but we connect on other things. Like my one daughter's into the whole Nightmare on Elm Street series and Friday 13th. So we connect on that one. Me, my brother, and her connect on that one. My other daughter, she kind of all that Harry Potter crap. I'm like, oh, no thanks. So Harry Potter, my mother and her, they bond over that.
Yeah, my daughter and I
well,
connect on how much of a disappointment I am. So,
sounds like we need to get Mark Hamill involved. Mark Hamill, please save our families.
you're
Oh,
our only hope.
well, what's so funny? The one time I was cool for my daughter, She was in love with Michael Rosenbaum, and I did that series where he's in Pastor and AfterBuzz. He used to come all the time. He used to come all the time. There's one episode he's sitting in my lap. It's a whole other story. Michael's great. He was drawing. He came to our show. He used to live down the street, so he come to the show with me, the two drunk girls, my co-host, and our show was off the rails. And Pastor was great, but he came and he was making doodles and stuff. And he goes, "What's your daughter's name?" He said on camera. I go, "Tammy." And he wrote, "To Tammy, here's some piece of me," or something like that. Love, Michael Rosenbaum. And so I go to Sacramento to give it, and I might as well just said, it should have been gold. She's like, "Oh my God." She's just like gushing over that. That's one of the few times I was cool, Frank. Other than that, I'm not cool.
You're cool to us, James, and to the fans.
To the fans, thank you. But when you're a dad, you're not cool. That's the whole point. You're not cool. That's not our job to be cool. That's not the job.
So I mean, I feel like as we're wrapping this up, I feel like we could say that Rogue One's still an enjoyable experience, at least for me. It's still watching it again in the context of seeing 2 seasons of Andor. I mean, the issues that I still had with the film when I originally watched it still exist to me. But there are moments where it just gives Andor more context and a more enriched feeling as I'm watching the series. I can't help but think, while I like the film for what it is, after watching 2 seasons of Andor, still have the thoughts in my head what it could be if this film was being done now as a follow-up. Boy, I think it would take in everything that we had seen in the series and just boy, what a great ending it would be. But we would never have had that series without Rogue One. So what are we gonna do?
That's the dichotomy, right, Frank? That's the dichotomy. It's the
that's what I'm saying too. Is like, it's funny, we're getting kind of like the mixture of that now, where it's like we had Rogue One first, then we got 2 seasons of Andor before that, and it's like the movie's great, the show's great, but now we're getting Mandalorian, right? Where we have multiple seasons of that, and to finish it off, we're gonna get a movie, Mandalorian Grogu, and it's like, what if this movie / series with Andor and Rogue One had been done that way?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I feel like you get colored with the Mandalorian stuff because season 3 of the Mandalorian was such a kind of a lull in the previous seasons. So having that being our lead up into the film, I feel like it's already kind of like, for some people, kind of like, we'll see. I want that film to be great, but it's hard to remember like, oh, I know we also kind of did in season 3, and it wasn't the most exciting use of those characters that we had seen from seasons 1 and 2.
No.
I'm with you, Frank.
I'm sorry. Give me a moment. My dog is barking.
Okay.
Oh, he's being attacked.
No, I'm with you, Frank. It's just weird. It's a hamster wheel. It's like there would be no Andor if there wasn't a Rogue One. But now that we got Andor, how much better Rogue One? That's how like I said earlier. So it's confusion for me watching this. Going, I don't want to nitpick this shit to death. I don't want to do that. All gatekeepers just nit to the death. It's a good, solid film on its own. It is the best of the solo film of all the standalone films. And again, the show it all connects. However, as my friend Tony Moore would say, I can imagine because how good Andor was, how much better this movie could have been. Or if there was no movie and it became Andor season 3.
Man,
that part. Just say so maybe it was a 6-episode series, season 3. We're doing shorter episodes. Here it is. We're leading to the end where everybody dies, basically. But it could have been, but who knows? I mean, like cinematography, everything could have been so much. I mean, because now it's today. So you can't help but imagine that now if you watch Andor, going, Tony did such a great job. If they said, okay, redo Rogue One, who knows what he would have came up with? That didn't come up with back then. Would he make the same choices today?
That's very true. And we'll never know unless we can build that time machine.
Well, I'm not doing that. I'm not that smart. But yeah, but I just think you're right. It's one of those things. Like I'm torn. Like I said, that's why I'm saying certain characters. I'm like, they're fine in it. I mean, okay, but then I missed the characters from the series.
Yeah.
But but then, did they necessarily need to be in the movie though? And like it's all it's a whirling dervish, as they say. Ideas.
John, everything okay with your pup?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Uh, John, any last thoughts as we're closing it up?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I loved Andor. I think it was such a great series. The movie Rogue One was also great. It's interesting how things sort of unfold because I would have loved to have seen, you know, it's funny because the series Andor never would have existed without the movie Rogue One. But I also still would have loved to have seen how Rogue One would have turned out if Andor existed first. But we'll never know that. Um, but still, just a great story told that Rogue One still somehow manages to finish, and I can't wait to rewatch the full series and then the movie right after without like any time constraints or anything like that, because I feel like I'll pick up on things like even the character of Melshi that was introduced in the first season of Rogue One of Andor, I mean, um, that we first met in Rogue One. And Melshi existed in season one of Andor, season two of Andor, translated and then later to the movie Rogue One. And it's like, I wonder what other connections there are that I haven't even picked up on yet. So,
Uh, and before we go, have you made a decision that you want to let the fans in know? Let the fans in on? Have you decided, are you changing just your first name to Cassian or your last name to Andor? Are you doing the full name change? What did you decide?
I might actually change my name to John Stewart because last night I was with Martha Stewart
Oh, that's right. Yes.
for a while. Yeah.
Nice. All right. I like that.
Yeah, last night at the Knicks game last night, I was caught up in a firestorm between Martha Stewart and Busta Rhymes.
Hey.
That's great.
Put your hands where I can see. You're really gonna fight for me. Put your hands where your eyes can see. Yeah. Right.
That's the Cavassier.
That's right. Oh, come on, Frank. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw last night. So I was working at the Knicks Pacers Eastern Conference Finals game last night,
Yes.
and I was asked by security at Madison Square Garden to escort Martha Stewart from her seat to her car
Wow.
in New York City. And as I was trying to do so, Martha Stewart was held up by Busta Rhymes. And so my dumb face is now in this
I
picture.
love that picture. I love that picture.
Oh, look at you. Look at you, John.
I love that.
That's
Your
me.
greatness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dumb face. I
And
love that picture.
on the left there is Busta Rhymes, the blonde, the old blonde,
Yes,
the
Oh,
old blonde.
we know who they are. Not saying old on this show. Leave it alone. It's Miss Martha Stewart.
and then right there, smack dab in the center, is that hunk
John.
John
Yeah,
Stewart.
the guy with the beard. That's me.
That's
John
you.
Stewart, right there.
So yeah, that
So what did you say to her after you guys kissed?
I I said Martha, Martha, please don't forget me. And she said, John, I never could.
There you
Mm,
go.
look at that. Uh, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, what better way to end the this episode of the Andor season two after show with just a hopeful promise of tomorrow for these young lovers, John and Martha Stewart.
A young love.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah. John and Martha Stewart, whose wedding will be presided over by Busta Rhymes.
Yes.
Exactly. There you go. That's right. Okay. That's it. I'm there.
Uh, thank you everybody for joining us in the chat, as well as joining us for this entire season, talking everything and anything Andor and Star Wars related. If you want to stay in touch with any of us, even after this show is done, or find out where John's wedding registry is, John, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram at jdunn89 or on TikTok at I am Dunphy.
Hmm. Soon
There
to
we
be
are.
changing to I am Stuart.
I am Stewart. Yes, I am Martha Stewart.
Our Sith Daddy, where can they find you?
Is this it? Really? Is this it for us? Are we done?
I mean,
Yes, we
unless
are.
that shirt's coming off,
I'm
then we
like,
can
it's like
say,
da 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 da. I'm just like, I'm like, yeah, I forgot because next week I start another co-host, Emily May Heller. You're going to follow. You watch a whole different series called "And Just Like That" on HBO Max. Returns for a third season.
oh,
I guess that replaces you guys. I guess I'm back to that.
go Team Aiden, I guess.
He's on the show this season again. He's they're still together. I'm not for them together. I don't want them together. That's me.
Wow. Hey, Carpenters.
I think my co-host likes them together. I think she doesn't deserve him. I think Carrie's a horrible character. That's my take. But you can watch all that and all my other shenanigans. Where all James Lott Juniors are sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms, everywhere, TikTok, everywhere. And Frank, where can they find you?
Find me on the social medias at Happy Go Jackie. Yes, JLJ Media has got not just the Andor season 2 after show, but plenty of Star Wars content. Lots of people have found it. If you have it, this is a great time to find it yourself. As we get ready to, we'll go into our, carbonite freeze, and until we get thawed for the next new Star Wars content, whether that's Ahsoka season 2, the Mandalorian and Grogu film. I don't know. We'll keep you posted, but stay follow us on social media, and we'll let you know when this trio of hunks.
Yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to just like getting together once in a while to like tell each other how hot we think we are.
What show should we do that on? There's so many we can choose from.
You know?
Uh, I'm down for that. I mean, I'm always down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be a quick like weekly like 5 minute episode. Be like, hey, J James, you're hot. Frank, you're hot.
John, you're hot. Frank, you're hot. Everybody's hot.
All right, goodbye.
Um, that's hilarious.
So, ladies and gentlemen, one last time for the Andor season 2 after show here on JLJ Media. May the force be with you.
May the force be
Oh,
with you.
always.
And